Welcome back to the Evolution of Horror. My name is Mike, and as ever, I am your host. If you're tuning in for the first time, then welcome. In this podcast, we usually explore and dissect the evolution of the horror genre by looking at particular subgenres across several weeks. We have completed 4 whole seasons. One season on the evolution of the slasher, another on ghosts, another on folk horror, and the latest season, which finished earlier this year, on the evolution of the zombie movie. Now, we will be back very soon with a brand new series exploring the evolution of the occult in horror cinema. However, this week we're bringing you a little bonus episode because we've just reached the end of the incredible London Film Festival. Now, for those of you who don't know, the London Film Festival is probably the biggest film festival that goes on in the UK all year round. Hundreds and hundreds of movie premieres that happen across sort of 2 weeks in October every year. And amongst those movies, we saw a whole bunch of incredible horror movies. So me and my co-host are going to run through some of our picks for the best horror and cult and genre movies that we saw at this year's LFF. Now, all of these reviews will be completely spoiler-free. We will not do deep dives into any of these movies because we're aware not many people out there have seen them yet. So we simply are going to give you a list of recommendations and movies to look out for, hopefully, in the upcoming few months. Not only that, you'll also hear some snippets from some fantastic directors that I got the chance to interview, including director of Under the Shadow and Wounds, Babak Anvari, director of The Brilliant Little Monsters starring Lupita Nyong'o, that was Abe Forsyth, and I got to chat to somebody who I never, to be honest, thought I would get the chance to meet and speak to, the brilliant Richard Stanley, who has just directed his first fictional feature film in 27 years, and that is the brilliant Colour Out of Space. So you will hear snippets from all of those interviews in the upcoming episode, and if you want to listen to the full interviews with any of those directors, you simply need to sign up to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/evolutionofhorror. Okay, couple of quick announcements before we get into the main episode. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, on the 30th of October, Halloween Eve this month, I am going to be hosting my first ever live episode of the Evolution of Horror. It's going to be a really, really exciting night. If you are in London or within easy reach of London, please do come along. Tickets are available now, and I'm very excited that I can now announce that we are going to be screening none other than William Friedkin's The Exorcist, the director's cut, on the big screen. So if you come along and buy a ticket, you will get to see on Halloween Eve one of the greatest, scariest movies ever made, and then you can watch a live podcast being recorded in which I am joined by Jamie Graham and Jen Handorf, and we discuss the movie in depth. It's going to be such a fun night. I'd love to see as many of you there as possible. Please do grab your tickets while they are still available. Follow the link in the show notes and get involved. One other quick thing to mention, we do have our Halloween party also happening in central London on Saturday, the 26th of October. It promises to be a really incredible night. I have now finally sorted out my fancy dress costume, and I'm very, very excited about it. That's all I'm going to say. Now, we have technically sold out of tickets of this. However, I'm just putting out one final plea to anyone who has signed up on the Eventbrite page and has RSVP'd but is no longer able to come. If you can't come anymore and you have tickets, please do let me or friend of the pod, Becky Dark, who is also organising the party, let one of us know, because we have a waiting list of people who are also trying to get hold of tickets who wanted to come to the party but couldn't. So we would love to be able to let them know if tickets are available. So please do just drop me a little message. You can DM me on Twitter or email me on evolutionofhorror@gmail.com and just let us know if you have RSVP'd to the party but are no longer able to come. But for the rest of you who have RSVP'd and are planning on coming, I can't fucking wait. I will see you all next Saturday night. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Okay, enough announcements. Let's get into the episode as we discuss the best stuff we saw at London Film Festival. This week, I'm going to be joined by, of course, one of my favourite co-hosts. He sees pretty much every film under the sun, and of course, he made it his mission to see every single horror and genre movie at this year's London Film Festival. The festival kind of destroyed us both. I think we're both on the brink of death at the moment, but it was all worth it. So here is my chat with my brilliant co-host, Brad Hanson.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you feeling? It's day after LFF's finished. It's been a long couple of weeks.
I'm fucking knackered.
Yeah. It is. Well, you went to New York and back in the middle of this festival as well, right?
Yeah, just because I'm a glutton for punishment, effectively.
I love it. I saw you on the Sunday morning when you'd flown overnight, right? And
Correct.
then landed and then came back to London to just carry on watching films.
I tried to get some sleep on the red eye, landed at 8 a.m. and was at London Film Festival for 9:30.
Incredible.
Because I tried to get into the Lighthouse and queued for 2 hours and didn't get in.
It is brutal, isn't it? This.
It
I know we talked about this briefly last year, but just for anyone, just to give a little insight. So LFF, obviously, big London Film Festival, premieres happening all over the city of London in different cinemas. Every day there's several premieres. And there's also a kind of press screening schedule. So for people like us, we can go to the press screenings. But the problem is, those press screenings are first come, first served. And there are a certain number of seats, and there are a lot more press than there are seats. So you have to get there early. And for some of these press screenings, they're at sort of 8 a.m. And
people are turning up at like 6.
Yeah. Which means people are stood in Leicester Square in the rain. It's been fucking raining every day throughout this festival as well, from about 6 a.m. So it's been brutal, hasn't it? It really has.
I don't recommend it. This year was particularly tough. There were certain things that I just had to accept that it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
You know. You mean you saw The Irishman? I didn't see The Irishman.
Well, you saw Marriage Story, which I didn't. And
but I saw that in New York. That's a cheat.
Yeah, it's one of the ones I most wanted to see. Although I guess I can't have that much because I woke up, my alarm went off at 6. I heard the rain pouring outside and I thought, nah, I'm going back to bed.
No,
and
I did that so many times in the second week because it runs like about 10 days.
Yeah.
And I wasn't here for the first 3. And then, I was here for the first day. I did a screening first thing in the morning, then went straight to the airport.
My God, yeah, you did. Actually, and while we're on the subject of Marriage Story, before we get into all the horror, just quickly, I want to ask you, what was your favourite non-horror movie of the festival, would you say?
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh, yeah, what a film. It kind of destroyed me, that film. It was amazing.
I was in bits, mate.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And then it became like a totem for me because I then repurposed the title to Portrait of a Bradley Who's Tired. So
nice.
It worked.
Nice. I think that film hits you even harder if you're tired, I think. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, it's astounding.
It really is. It really is. There's some incredible stuff that we saw, actually. The standard's been pretty high. I would say, I mean, I talked about this briefly on the Patreon, actually. It's not a horror, but it is a bit stabby. Knives Out is probably my favourite and one of the most fun movies I've seen all year.
It's ranked my number 4.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? Ryan Johnson. I think it's even better than the trailer suggests. I think the trailer makes it look like it's going to be a kind of silly, fun romp, which it is, but I think it's actually really smartly written and directed as well, which I loved.
I feel like it was difficult to get that many cast members enough time.
Yeah.
So, Bill Densborough again.
Yeah.
You never know his fucking name.
It's true, yeah.
But his role in it is kind of criminally underused. And I think
it's true.
I'm assuming there's probably going to be an extended cut.
Yeah.
Because that film is 2 hours and 10 minutes and it doesn't even feel like it.
Oh, it raced by it.
Yeah. It's brilliant. That was the first film I saw on my birthday.
Oh, there you go. That's a good birthday screening.
That was a good one to start it off.
Cool. That's pretty cool. And the closing night film, The Irishman, is great. It's really, really good. But everyone will get to see that on Netflix soon anyway. Because actually a lot of these LFF films are getting a Netflix release.
Marriage Story is Netflix. So is The Irishman, Uncut Gems, which was the surprise film. That's going to be on Netflix.
I'm dying to watch as well.
I know, I'm so pissed off I didn't get in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I tried.
It's been brutal. There were just too many films this time. But anyway, speaking of which, we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to cover mainly the horror and genre movies now. Again, we talked about this last year, but just to give anyone an insight who isn't at this festival, they kind of categorize the films. They put them into different categories. They've got different strands programmed by different people. So they've got the laugh strand, which is sort of comedy stuff. They've got the thrill strand, which is obviously more sort of thriller. They've got the experimenter strand, which is like art house stuff. And they've got the cult strand, which Michael Blythe, who's on this podcast regularly, he programs. And they are essentially, the cult strand is just horror genre type stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's some sci-fi and there's some other kind of more difficult to define stuff in there as well.
Yeah, there's kind of the unclassifiable ones sit there, but you often find that a lot of things straddle There's a film in Thrill that I think could fall in horror. There's 3 in the official competition that I think could fall in horror in certain
which we
ways.
will get to. Yeah. So essentially, what we'll do is we'll cover all of the movies in the cult strand, and then a few extras that didn't fall in that category, but definitely are worth talking about on this podcast.
If you like your horror, then they're either horror centric or they're certainly not elevated horror, though, are they?
They're certainly not. Absolutely. Yeah. We've had a lot of discussions about that in the last couple of weeks as well. Overall, before we get into it, would you say the level has been high? Has it been a good standard this year?
I think, sorry, Michael, I preferred last year's lineup.
Interesting. Did you? Okay.
Only because there wasn't really any duds last year, and this year there was a couple that didn't really work for me.
Yes.
Which is the only thing I'm basing it on. Some of the films he's programmed are astonishing and really great, but there is a couple that just didn't tickle my pickle at all.
And I think, there's always going to be that, and I'm sure festival programmers, that's part of it, isn't it, I guess? People are not going to like everything. I think for me, and to be fair, actually, I should also say there are a few on this that I haven't seen, which you have seen. So I might not have seen some of the ones that you didn't like as much, but I would say pretty much everything, compared to, for example, Fright Fest, where you see some great stuff but you do see some absolute dreck. Usually everything is of a pretty good standard. Like, I don't think on Letterboxd, for example, I gave anything less than 3 stars out of 5. So I tended to like even the stuff that I liked least, I still quite enjoyed this year, which was great. So I would say it's pretty, from my perspective, a pretty amazing standard.
Certainly everything that he's programmed has definitely got value. Even the things that I didn't like or didn't work for me, I can see why people would like them.
Yeah. For example, like Anton Patel, who we spoke to, did like the one particular film I remember you said you didn't. Yeah, which we'll get to.
Yeah, that one.
There's a mix of different stuff, and there's a little something for everyone, which is nice. Okay, well, let's do it. We're going to rattle through these. These are all going to be completely spoiler free. We won't do any deep dives into anything, so we will just talk about some of our highlights. Where should we start?
Mate,
it's a good question, isn't it?
Do you want to start from the bottom and work your way up?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay,
so we're going to start with the film that you haven't seen this one.
Okay.
We're gonna work our way up based on what I ranked them. So this is not indicative of the podcast. This is just what I've.
That's good.
Thought.
We'll use you as the guide. Let's do this.
Okay, so the first film we're going to talk about is called Bina, also known as The Antenna.
Yanlış giden bir şeyler olduğunu düşünüyorsanız yanılıyorsunuz. Güç kaderimizdir.
This film's directed by Orhan Beram, and it's basically about the inhabitants of an apartment building are sort of caught in a living nightmare when a radical new communications technology goes horribly awry. So what you're thinking here is Orwellian, 1984, the government is bad,
etc.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we follow Yassim, and he's the security guard who's in charge of looking after this tower block. There's an accident when installing this new communications tower, and a gentleman unfortunately perishes.
Okay.
This isn't really a spoiler, it's fine.
Okay.
From there, the film goes to an almost Cronenbergian body horror, oozy, pussy.
There was a lot of that this year. Yeah.
There's a lot of that,
Yeah.
This one's kind of got sort of Tetsuya the Iron Man kind of vibes to it. However...
Okay, I was going to say, because all this sounds quite good to me.
Yeah. For me, there's some fundamental flaws in this film that it doesn't abide by its own rules.
Right, okay.
So it sets out a set of rules, which I can't obviously speak about, but then completely ignores them when the mood takes it.
Mm-hmm.
It never delineates characters' motives or relationships, so you're not sure about certain reasons for why things happen. There's also a relationship that looks a bit noncy on paper.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure it is, but it looks noncy. And the kind of set design, I'm seeing a lot of people really like the kind of set design, but for me, it looked like a GCSE art school project.
Right. Do you know what? It looked a bit like that for me, even in the still that I saw in the program, to be honest.
The TVs?
Yeah.
And basically what the main crux of the issue is that, of course, this is an insidious government working its way and corrupting the inhabitants, the populace, is that it stretches that very simple premise to breaking point. Like, it doesn't do enough with that information. It kind of says, well, this is it, and then it kind of just sticks in first gear for it, and I've called it here that it provides rudimentary allegories.
Okay.
You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. And I'm not, tearing my hair out wanting to see it.
You didn't see it because I said I didn't like it.
Yeah. It just gave me an excuse to, I had very little time across this festival, and I was like, do you know what? I'll give that one a miss.
You'll give that one a swerve.
Yeah.
In terms of when this is coming out, it doesn't have a distributor. Don't know if it will ever see the light of day. It may do.
Yep.
But we don't know at this juncture.
Okay.
I've tried to obviously...
find out. I wonder whether it will it pop up somewhere on Shudder or something like that, do you think? Or is it a bit too out there?
I don't know. I can imagine this kind of like just plopping on Amazon Prime and without any fanfare. I don't know if it's right for Shudder. It's not particularly horror in any regard. It's more nothing.
Okay.
Which is the worst thing that this could be.
Yeah. Nothingy. Oh, that's a shame.
But, other people have liked it. It's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, there you go. So we've started at the bottom there. That's the antenna. Okay. All right, what's next?
All right, you have seen this one.
Okay, good.
It's Vivarium.
Ah, yeah.
I know what you guys are thinking. Suburbia. But there's more to yonder than what you see in these images. We've lovely people. All sorts of people ready to move in. It's going to be a diverse community. Something different, a nice blend.
Where's it located?
Near enough. And far enough. Just the right distance.
Vivarium is I think it's a kind of Black Mirror-y story in a way. It stars Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots. They are first-time buyers, and they meet this very creepy estate agent who takes them to see a new show home. And when they turn up at this new show home in this very weird kind of new development, everything is sort of a bit off and not quite as it seems. And then they kind of get stuck in this sort of nightmare scenario, basically, from there. What did you think?
Not for me, mate.
Not for you. I quite liked this, but yeah, I saw it. I was in a screening with Mary Wilde. She hated it as well. I really liked it. I was talking to Michael Blythe about it, who really liked it as well. But it seems to have really kind of divided people one way or the other. Yeah,
I've got similar criticisms that I did with the antenna. Is that I think it takes a very simple premise and absolutely beats you over to the head with. No continuation of what you're trying to say. It's true. It could have been a short, possibly. I think that's what I said in my sort of review. So it's just directed by Lorcan Finnegan. Jonathan Harris is the guy that plays the estate agent. He's fucking brilliant in this film. It's also got really good. It's also got one of the creepiest child performances I've ever seen. I think it's so creepy. They were talking about how this kid, they don't know how they found him. Apparently, his mum wasn't a very pushy, stage mum or anything like that. Yeah. Nothing like that. She was just he's just like this. Oh my God. And he is, when you watch this film, it's weird. It's so weird. I found it. I personally got really sucked into it. I quite enjoyed it, and I absolutely agree. It could be a short film. It is like an Inside Number 9 episode stretched to an hour and a half, or a Black Mirror episode stretched to an hour and a half. They even live at number 9. They even live at number 9. Exactly. It's really weird that, but there are elements of it, visual elements that I really loved. There was a section in it that reminded me of a movie like Cube or something like that. I know the part. That I really loved, and I thought Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots were pretty good as well. Jesse Eisenberg, who I sometimes can find quite irritating, I quite liked in this, although he was a bit miscast as a kind of gardener, which is his job. I was like, I could never see Jesse Eisenberg working as a gardener. No, I mean, there's some interesting tidbits in the fact that he actually wanted to take as much of a passive role in the film as possible. Now, he's saying, the way that Imogen Poots described it was saying that, he wanted to champion the lady, and the female role in the film. I think it's because he's lazy. You just cut my dialogue. I don't need to say that. I don't need to say that. I love it. But that's true. And they do have some interesting stuff there going on in terms of their kind of gender roles and, playing house, I suppose, and what it means to be the mum and what it means to be the dad and all that kind of thing. This is my problem with it. Is that it's it's kind of like a dystopian indictment of firstly, the housing crisis. Yeah. That's very much apparent. But also, I'm guessing I've called it "Fuck Having Kids" the movie.
Yes, it's terrifying.
Is the way it kind of posits itself, and it certainly looks like it's an indictment of heteronormative relationships. Woman, caregiver, husband works himself into an early grave.
Yeah,
figuratively or literally.
Yes.
And for me, like what I found interesting, or not interesting, is that it's a critique of these things, yet it treads the exact like the constructs that you would expect it to, and doesn't appear to be showing any critique of it.
No.
So she falls into the maternal role.
Yeah.
But that's not the film doesn't critique her for doing that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
It almost celebrates her falling into that role, and I'm just like, what?
Almost, yeah.
What are you trying to say?
I would disagree. Well, we'll get that. This will get into a more of a deep dive spoiler discussion, but I think it goes the other way in the final act. But I know what you mean. Maybe it needs to say a bit more about what it's doing. But okay, so Vivarium, I liked it more than you. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's worth paying to go to the cinema to see, but hopefully that will pop up somewhere.
I would imagine this would be like a Netflix thing.
Yeah, it feels very Netflix, doesn't it?
I mean, if they've got Inside Number 9 and
exactly
and Black Mirror, although when they spoke about their influences before the film. Or after the film, never mentioned either of those two things.
It's weird. That's so weird.
But it's almost like I would have an aversion if it was so blatantly a rip-off of like an idea that one of those programs could present.
Yeah.
I would stay clear of it. So they were saying things like upstream colour.
No.
It's not upstream.
It's not upstream
Primer.
colour. Yeah.
It's not anything Shane
It's
Carruth
definitely
done.
not. In fact, there's going to be something we get to actually that reminded me a bit of Primer, but not this. It's definitely not this.
I know what you're talking about.
It's definitely not this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is Vivarium. Okay.
Vivarium.
All right, let's move on. What's next?
The El Duce tapes.
Oh, yes. And I know you weren't a big fan of this one. Go ahead.
Middling.
Okay. What's the El Duce tapes?
So, a willfully offensive band, the Mentors, were intensely popular in the 1980s and 90s with their own unique brand of rape rock.
Yeah.
Their lead singer/drummer, El Duce, also known as, his real name's Eldon, was kind of cartoonishly racist, homophobic, and misogynistic. And the film is made up of a collection of tapes that an aspiring actor took of them during the early 90s while they're touring, and he's filming for no distinct reason other than he's kind of just documenting this movement or this idea. And El Duce ends up being on Jerry Springer and on the Hot Seat and all these other kind of shock chat shows, preaching his fucked up reviews of the world. And the film is pieced together by Rodney Asher, who did Room 237.
Yes, and The Nightmare.
And David Lawrence, who's an editor, who I think this is his first time directing. And so that's the film.
Yeah. I mean, that is literally the film. It's just a collection of tapes of this guy being gross, really.
Yeah, with maybe 5 minutes tacked on for the film to play its hand as to what it's inferring.
Yeah.
In terms of what it's trying to say. Because for the first 20 minutes, that half an hour of this, I was like, why the fuck are they showing this?
Yeah, totally. And I talked about this briefly on the Patreon thing. It's kind of like... I think it's up to everyone to make their own mind on this and whether or not this is a film that's commenting on anything or whether it is just, I don't know, just watching this guy do gross things for the sake of it, really.
Like a freak show. And
I guess that is also what the film is about, though. It's kind of about, like, if you make art that is really grotesque and shocking and nasty and extreme, does it have to be saying something? Does it mean that the artist is actually this monster, or is he playing a character, etc.? Is it okay to like this art, etc.?
But I myself, as you know, was in a band that was less than great.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in a horrible deathcore band, and we had some questionable things. But I grew up.
Yeah.
And I distanced myself from that, which is why no one really knows what it is. You know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I don't think that there always is a problem with, art being anything, no matter how extreme, if it's just art, but, it's tricky, isn't it, with things like this?
I think though, if you want to see a documentary or an examination of kind of extreme music or extreme ideals or extreme behavior in terms of musicians, you would be better served watching Hated, G.G. Allen and the Murder Junkies, which was directed by Todd Phillips.
Oh, God.
of Joker fame. Sorry, The Hangover fame.
Yeah.
And that is a much better documentary.
Okay,
like
interesting.
In terms of, they're both tackling the same subject, but Hated does it a lot better.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the El Duce tapes.
Okay.
I don't think it'll ever come out over here, but prove me wrong.
You never know. You never know.
UK distributors, prove me wrong.
So that is the El Duce tapes. Okay, let's move on. What's next? The standard is slowly going to get better.
We're creeping up. We're starting. But we're going to reach a cacophony of greatness.
Exactly.
It's coming.
Exactly.
Another one you haven't seen. It's Fabrice Duwell's Adoration.
Oh, yeah.
Je suis pas malade, tu sais. Je sens juste quand les gens me veulent du mal.
Et tu sens quoi pour moi?
T'es la personne la plus gentille que j'ai jamais rencontrée.
Paul is a 12-year-old boy who lives with his mother, a nurse working at a mental institution in the middle of the forest. While visiting his mother at the clinic, Paul crosses paths with Gloria, a schizophrenic teenager, and falls madly in love with her to the point where he decides to help her escape at all costs after she commits a crime. The pair embark on a trip across the Ardennes woods, which will reveal the extent of Gloria's dangerous madness and Paul's devotion to her.
Okay. Interesting. It sounds like quite an interesting setup.
You'd think, wouldn't you? So I've said here, a film so passive and concerned with simplicity that it almost passes you by without you noticing.
Okay.
So this is completing a trilogy of films. This is where your interest is going to get piqued.
Yeah, I know.
This is the third part of the trilogy that he's completed with Calvier.
Yes. What a film.
You'll be covering on the Occult series?
I've already covered on
Folk
horror with Stevie Webb, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Stevie. And Alleluia, which played in 2014 at Fright Fest. Now, I dig both those movies hard.
Yeah.
Like, really like them. This film it's got some beautifully evocative imagery.
Yeah.
Like, he shot it on Super 16.
Oh, cool.
So it looks beautiful. There's a lot of magic hour shots. You know, Malik's got his fucking hard on. The film itself, though, is kind of hollow.
Right.
For me, now, once again, this is another one that split people right down the middle. I've landed kind of in the middle. I think it's a good film. I don't think it's a great film. It could easily not be in the cult section.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I spoke to Michael about it and said this could be in Journey or in Love. Love is probably its more fitting place.
Right.
I mean, there are the typical Duwelt's acts of barbarity and violence, but they're pretty fucking slim.
Okay, interesting. Right,
it's more about this relationship with this unhinged girl and this doting boy. Now.
Oh, no.
Now, the film treads that line of like almost offensive manic pixie dream girl.
Right, yeah.
Passive man. All right. But the film paints itself into a corner because if you reverse that and it was an insane man and a doting woman, you'd be like, why is she so weak? Yeah. So the film's playing the best hand that it can, but it's playing quite a trite and cliche. She's mad as a box of frogs, and he's just like
going along for the ride kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's what I mean by it being so passive, because he himself is very passive. He's great in it, and he's very soulful and gentle, and I thought the film was going to do some things that it doesn't, or does it?
Right, okay.
It does, like, it teases a thing, and I was hoping that's where it was going to go. It doesn't, but does it? I don't know.
Okay, interesting.
It's an interesting one, but it's very loose. And he was very insistent. Once again, I went to a public of this. He was very insistent that he wanted to make it as simple as possible, and kind of hark back to kind of Dogma 95,
right,
kind of credos of making films.
Yeah.
Which, you know, when Vinterberg does it in Festen.
Oh, man. What a film. Oh, my God.
Chef's Kiss.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This doesn't have anything to it. It's, you know, it kind of feels maybe like Breathless or The 400 Blows.
Oh, okay.
That kind of...
Yeah.
idyllic romance that seldom actually happens. Because these days we just get ghosted all the time. Well, certainly I do. All the time.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but I think it has value. I think it's a beautiful kind of thing to look at.
Right.
But you got to pay attention.
And maybe just in comparison to, like, expectation-wise, if you're a fan of Fabrice and...
If you're going to put these in with Calvert and Hallelujah...
And Calvert, which is, essentially, like almost... me and Stevie talked about it in a kind of French extremity kind of context.
And it's dark. Like the whole film is dark. And so it's like darkness and light, the contrast between the two. And this film is so much more concerned with love and affection and adoration.
Interesting.
Than it is... It feels almost like the peppered violence is him being like, fuck, I've got to do this, haven't I?
Yeah, better ticks and boxes.
He maybe doesn't want to do it. Like he wants to go...
Maybe he's just in a more optimistic place in his life.
He wants to be more soulful.
Yeah,
he wants to be more Malek-esque. But
Interesting.
It's just a weird one because I do not know why it's in the cult. Like, I wouldn't... if you put this in love, I would not have any qualms with it. But,
okay.
Whatever.
All right. Okay, interesting. Well, that's adoration then. Okay. All right, let's move on. What's next?
Moorhead, Benson, Synchronic.
Ooh, lovely. So, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, as I'm sure many people listening to this podcast know, they've been on the podcast before, in fact, but they are the guys behind The Endless and Resolution and Spring. They do these really interesting kind of horror, sci-fi, interesting Lovecraftian tales, and this is that they kind of hit a bit more of the big time with this movie, right? Haven't they? Because this is their previous movies have been quite small with a kind of indie sensibility, and this stars Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan, so this is like
some heavy hitters.
This is proper, This is heavy hitters. What's Synchronic about? What can you reveal Synchronic is about?
Well. Two New Orleans paramedics' lives are ripped apart after encountering a series of horrific deaths linked to a new designer drug with bizarre and otherworldly effects.
Yeah, that's about all we should reveal. I think that's good. Because it is... what I love about it, I love about all their films, is sitting down to watch one of their films and not knowing what the fuck I'm about to watch. And this one is exactly that, because it goes off in directions I was not expecting at all. What did you think of this movie?
I liked it. I would say it is good.
Yes.
I do not think it's as good as Spring.
No.
I don't think it's as good as The Endless.
No. Agreed.
But what I love about Benson and Moorhead is how committed they are to these high concept, insane ideas.
Well, this is the one for me that reminded me of Primer and those types of movies. They really go for it, and they are more about the ideas than anything else. And I love their kind of they shoot.
They shoot for the moon.
They do shoot for the moon. Yeah, that's what I really like about it. And like you say, they're committed.
And this one is quite the engaging trip.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. There's something of, at the beginning, in the first half of it, of Gaspar Noé to me in its camera work, and it's kind of like quite weird, dreamlike kind of gliding camera that sort of moves around, and everything feels a bit kind of off. And then it goes into more proper sort of sci-fi territory as it goes on, but it's an interesting mix.
It is, and it does feel like this film feels like an audition for them to take on Blade Runner 3049 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they're getting closer to what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with Resolution and to a degree Spring, they were more rooted in horror.
Yes.
Or lore than they were in sci-fi. But with The Endless and Synchronic, I see them drifting more towards this kind of science fiction, time travel-y kind of thing. And, could they do H.G. Wells as the Time Machine?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think they could.
They're really smart, but also I think they do write good characters as well. I think that they seem to be very good, actually. This is something I talked about on with James on Patreon. We talked about the film briefly, that they are like, they're very good at writing, like, I suppose they would be, but like blokes, like best mates and things like that. When you look at things like The Endless and this, I think those parts are really well written.
I think they're quite fully formed male characters.
Yeah,
they're complex and they're not.
They're flawed and they're complex and they're interesting and
they've Mackie's got shit going on.
Yeah,
Dornan's certainly got shit going on.
Yeah, it's not even really much of Jamie Dornan's story. It's Anthony Mackie's story, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean he's the lead in this, and there's some really interesting, striking visuals that they create.
Amazing visuals, yeah.
And you can see that the budgets are creeping up for this sort of stuff because there's no way they'd be able to pull this sort of stuff on The Endless. And some of the kind of ingenuity in how they do things. Do you also get like a bit of a Chronicle vibe to it?
Chronicle, totally. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's also some subtle stuff creeping in there, I think, about race as well, and involving Anthony Mackie's character, especially where the story goes, and it's all set in this kind of murky New Orleans kind of setting as well.
A lot of films were set in New Orleans this year. Another recurring theme.
Yeah, interesting. I would say absolutely check it out if you're a Benson and Moorhead fan. Even if you're not, in some ways it's a good, I think we talked about this on Patreon actually, but it's a good gateway drug into Benson and Moorhead. It's a little bit less oblique and difficult to grasp than The Endless, I would say. I think it kind of sets up its rules quite in a straightforward way. This movie.
The Endless kind of is contingent. How much you enjoy that film is how much you've seen their previous body of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this is, as I say, a good gateway drug. A good hit of Synchronic.
Exactly. A bit more mainstream and some, very handsome leading men. And, it's good fun. It's a good fun.
You can't fault that. But yeah, I think it's produced really well. I think it's performed really well. I think Mackie's very good in it.
Yeah, very good.
I've got some problems with the logic at the end, but which I can't get into.
Yeah, I would love to have a chat actually, because I've not really properly discussed this with anyone yet about the ending. Because as with The Endless and most of their films, the ending made me go, what? A little bit. But
how does that
work? But also, I kind of trust that those guys have thought it through.
Oh, I'm sure if you ask them, they'd be like, "What's this, you dumb fuck?"
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll be like, "Oh."
So I'm hoping. I've been promised I can get them back on the podcast when they're next down in London for the official release of this, which I will hopefully do a big spoilery discussion and find out all of those answers like I did with The Endless. Man. Yeah, I can't wait. So that is Synchronic. That is getting an official release, I think, with Studio Canal in the new year. I don't know if you have those details, but
I didn't.
Okay, fine. I don't even know if a date's been released yet, but it is getting distribution in
that's
the
good
new
news.
year.
I'm happy for him.
Which is really good news.
That's really good.
So there we go. That is Synchronic. All right, let's move on. What's next?
Babak Anvari's Wounds.
Ooh, lovely.
Who were you talking to last night?
There was these college kids who left a cell phone there. And I went through it to see whose it was. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. It's awful.
I'm going to ask you what you thought of Wounds in just a second, but before we get into that, I'm going to play you a little snippet. I got to sit down and chat with the wonderful, the lovely Babak Anvari. So this is the guy who directed Under the Shadow a few years ago, and this is his follow-up movie. So this will be completely spoiler-free. You can just hear a little snippet of my chat with Babak. Here we go. Tell me about the casting of this, because you've gone into your second film. Suddenly, these proper A-list celebrity, Armie Hammer and Dakota Johnson are kind of household names, and they're very known, I think, for playing particular types of roles or maybe being in particular types of movies. These are two very beautiful people from films that are, whether or not they're romance or those types of movies. So it's kind of fun seeing them in a film like this. I just wondered, did you always have these two in mind for these parts? And, did you use their stardom in some way, when you were sort of creating these characters?
Well, casting was pretty much a conversation with Anna Pernas, but the key thing, basically, my pitch for Wounds was it's a relationship drama that turns into a nightmare.
That is exactly what it is.
So it was interesting to find, I thought I got lucky and found this brilliant cast, because to find these people who are known to play in these type of movies, and then bringing them and saying, well, you think it's a relationship drama, but it's not.
Yeah.
But I got both of them. I mean, Armie, the whole film is on his shoulders. I mean, he's the lead.
He's basically never off screen.
He's never off screen, and we see everything through basically his point of view.
Yes,
and his kind of his descent and his sort of untangling, and he wants a good challenge, and I met him in LA. It was literally, I think, the first actor. It was right around the time Call Me by Your Name had come out, so he was looking for something new. And I sat down with him, we talked, and I said to him, I have this project, I have this script. I don't know if you're going to go for it, but I'd love to share it with you. And he said, send it to me. And I remember I sent him the script. 48 hours later, he sent me an email saying, dude, you're fucked in the head. And it's like, I'm in. And he really went for it, and he really got the character and got excited about exploring that dark side of him. It was kind of therapeutic for all of us.
There you go, lovely Babak Anvari. If you want to hear more of that interview, the whole thing, we chatted about for about half an hour. You can hear all of that on Patreon. Okay, so Wounds. We heard Babak talk about it very briefly there, but what's the story? What can you reveal about Wounds?
So a New Orleans bartender comes into possession of a phone during a drunken fight. There's a skirmish. He picks up the phone, and it belongs to this group of college kids. The problem is, there's something fucked with that phone, isn't there?
There's something wrong.
Something is amiss. From there, his life and Dakota Johnson are in big shit. They're in gunky, gooey, horrible shit from there on.
It's really interesting, this, because like you say, gunky, gooey, it's nasty, this movie. And like his previous work, Under the Shadow, was this incredibly kind of like old school, subtle, character based gothic ghost story, right?
Very taut. Shot in Iran, doubling for Iraq. Which, you know, is beautiful
It is
film.
beautiful. This is a lot scuzzier and nastier and grosser, isn't it? Which I kind of loved, but
I mean, I the kind of body horror element of it once again comes to the fore. Armie Hammer, bless him, has quite the time of it.
Yeah, he's never off camera throughout the entire film. He's pretty much carries this film, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Dakota Johnson is kind of off to the side.
Yeah,
almost singularly in her knickers.
I know.
Constantly.
Yeah, completely. And she does have a bit of... I feel a bit sorry for Dakota Johnson in most roles she plays, actually. She's got a bit of a kind of weak, thankless role in this movie, hasn't she?
She's got to play like the nagging girlfriend.
Although, having said that, Armie Hammer also plays a very weak man who becomes increasingly unlikable as it goes on, which I kind of loved as well.
This is... So when I came out of my screening of it, I was met with two things. People loving it.
Yeah.
Or people fucking hating it.
Yeah.
And I think what the film does a really good sort of job as Babak speaks about on the Patreon episode, is it's really good at looking at the kind of the fragility of masculinity.
Yeah.
And also about men's fear and men's paranoia and men's... which is not often kind of looked at. And we've got our own fucking hang-ups. Yeah. I'm sure you do, I do, everyone does. But to kind of put them out there and like an open wound.
Yeah.
And for the world to see and be like, well, this is what we're really like underneath. We might pretend that we're all big, tough guys and whatever, but underneath we're just broken... hollow little men.
And actually, Armie Hammer is quite an extreme example of it, because he's in some ways quite a difficult leading man to just be stuck with on this journey. But I love that about it, and it reminded me a little bit. I think he cast quite cleverly, because he cast Armie Hammer, who is just this incredibly handsome, lovable guy. Babak had just watched him in Call Me by Your Name when he cast him for this, you know. So it's like polar opposite sort of thing, and I think it reminded me a bit of the casting of Ben Affleck in Gone Girl, this kind of like, they almost use his stardom to kind of subvert it as this character of this kind of quite horrible, toxic male who's very good looking, but also is a
piece of shit.
A piece of shit, exactly, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you find that often with actors, they rise to stardom and then do something completely against type just to buck conventions, or to keep it interesting for themselves.
And we'll get to Robert Pattinson later, but
I mean, our Pat's he's been on quite the journey.
He really has.
But you know, Armie Hammer, like, what fucking Lone Ranger? Remember that fucking mess.
Yeah, and actually, Armie Hammer's always been quite. I saw a Q&A with him recently, and he was like, I didn't want to do those movies that Hollywood kept putting me in. I didn't want to be this kind of boring, generic leading man, you know, and I think he's really enjoyed his journey of going into like Ben Wheatley movies and then Call Me by Your Name and things like Wounds, and he was very excited apparently about the prospect of Wounds. And you know, there's all these stories about him creeping around Sundance excitedly, leaving fake cockroaches and rubber cockroaches on people's seats and stuff like that. So I think he was loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him, because I say I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, me too. Really fun.
The great news is you all can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't know when this episode's coming out.
Yeah, it's likely to be... The film will probably be out when this episode is out,
Friday.
if not very soon afterwards. Yeah. So, yeah, Friday the 18th of October.
Friday the 18th of October. Wounds will be on Netflix worldwide. So you can all check it out.
Yeah. And I think... I'm really excited to hear what everyone thinks about it, because, like you said, it has really divided people down the middle, and something that Babak himself was really pleased about, that people either love it or absolutely hate it, which is really fun.
It's got plot and logic issues.
It does.
But I don't care.
No. I was happy to go along for the ride. And Armie Hammer's so watchable. Zazie Beetz is incredibly watchable. Oh. My God. And Dakota, all of them actually. Everyone's amazing. I think it's really fun. I didn't quite understand, again, a bit like Synchronic. It got to the end and I went, what?
I fucking love the end.
But I loved it.
The end was like a big kick in the dick. Where you're just like... I think you could literally hear a collective... Oh.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
Okay, we're done.
But I'm kind of looking forward to one day revisiting it, to seeing like what the fuck I watched. But
I think there's some stuff hidden.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think it's one of those ones that's going to require a little repick. So I'll probably go back and have a little look at it again. But I really liked it.
So there you go. Check that out. That is on Netflix probably right now as we speak. So that is Wounds. Babak Anvari's Wounds. Okay. We are getting to the good stuff now. What's next on the list?
It's the first film that I think both you and I saw at London Film Festival way back in September.
Yes.
And that is Leap of Faith for William Friedkin on The Exorcist.
Oh, yes. Okay, so before we get into this documentary, I'm going to play you another little snippet. I chatted to the director of this documentary. Now, Alexandre O'Philippe is like us, really, on this podcast. He's a big genre fan, and I think he loves looking at genre movies and the making of genre movies and the history of genre movies and the impact of genre movies. And he made what's it called? I always forget. 78. He made 7852, which was the documentary about the Psycho shower scene. He also made a movie last year called Memory: The Origins of Alien.
He also made Dock of the Dead as well.
And he made Dock of the Dead, exactly. So he's made these really interesting horror docs. This is his latest, all about William Friedkin's The Exorcist. Here is a little snippet with Alexandre O'Philippe.
Really, Leap of Faith is a look at The Exorcist through fine art, classical music, classic cinema, but ultimately it's really about understanding the essence of William Friedkin, and I think there's some surprises even for people who really know a lot about him and about The Exorcist.
Definitely. How was it? Did you just sit down with him? Was it just one long interview? Is that?
It was 6 days of interviews.
Was it? Wow, fantastic.
6 days of interviews.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So,
and what was he like as an interviewee?
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't rave enough about him. He is really warm and really. I really felt that he. He obviously had many things to say. He wanted to share many things, and it was just seamless, I think, in the process.
It feels like he's quite honest too. There's not much bullshit with him, right?
Well, he's he's definitely a showman. Yeah, and in the edit, I wanted to make sure to sort of temper that a little bit, because I think we all know William Friedkin the showman, and I think he knows that we all know William Friedkin the showman, but the William Friedkin who starts talking about his doubts and his regrets, and who gets not to give it away, but who gets really emotional about an experience he had in Kyoto 40 years ago. That is not the William Friedkin that we're used to seeing, and I'm really glad that he was willing to share that.
There you go, Alexandre O'Philippe. He was really fascinating to chat to, actually, and he loves this shit. I think he loves getting to just sit and explore all of these classic horror movies. And William Friedkin actually approached him and was like, "I want you to make a movie about me," because he watched 7852, and he basically said, "I want to have this treatment."
Oh, it's vanity.
Yeah, totally, exactly. So here we go then. So what did you think of this movie?
I mean, there's not much to tell you about the plot. It's William Friedkin talking to camera.
Yeah.
About The Exorcist.
Yeah, it's essentially a 90-minute just interview with William Friedkin with some clips.
I would call it a visual essay.
Yeah, it is. It's a video essay. It's a bunch of kind of fair dealt clips that he talks about. Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's a really fascinating conversation and dive into Friedkin's, not necessarily his motives, but his influences and his kind of ideals when creating sort of, one of the most startling films of all time.
Yeah.
And he talks about things that you would never imagine influenced The Exorcist. Yes. When he's talking about expressionist paintings from the 15th century. Yes, and you're like, well, but then not only does he say that, you're then shown an example of the painting and then how it has been repurposed into the film. And looking at a film like this, I mean, I don't know what Commode thinks about it, but I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there is this element of, I'm sure a lot of us as horror fans are like, okay, what more can you or William Friedkin tell us about the making of The Exorcist? It feels like I've seen a lot of docs about it, most of them made by Kermode, and I've heard William Friedkin talk a lot about all of these elements. But like you say, all of that stuff is something I'd never heard him talk about. The kind of the weird influences.
Yeah, it's kind of a fresh take on it, and sort of looking at the film from a different. He talks about this Swedish or Danish movie, Oder. From 1955 as like being a main influence about showing faith on screen.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
He said he didn't want to do campy kind of stuff like the Ten Commandments or anything that sort of that, and he said that was the best. So then immediately I'm like, well, I want to fucking watch Odette now.
I know. It's great actually for that, like showing me things. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Friedkin himself is such an engaging interviewee as well. Thank God, because again, the film is basically just him talking, but he is funny and he's entertaining, and you get the feeling he's quite honest as well, and he doesn't really give a shit. He says what he means,
I mean, he's at a point now where he can just say and do whatever he wants.
And there is that interesting, and I talked with Alexandre Philippe about this this issue of was he basically an abusive director, and the way he hit his actors, and he damaged Ellen Burstyn's spine, and he slapped that priest around the face, and he shot a gun on set, and he did all that stuff, and he touches on that a little bit in this interview as well.
Yeah, but he's kind of happy about it.
Yeah.
Because he's basically harking back saying you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I miss the good old days.
Yeah.
It's like Jim Crow laws all over again. Miss the good old days.
I know. I love it.
But it's really interesting. It doesn't touch on anything about the Exorcist curse, which makes me think that maybe Friedkin doesn't believe that there is an Exorcist curse.
Probably. And again, we have seen documentaries about that as well, so that's the thing. So, but I think, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably the type of person that would enjoy that doc, because, we love docs about the making of horror movies, don't we? And William Friedkin is quite a legend, and it's fun to hear him chat.
Especially about, one of the most important horror films of all time.
Exactly. Very important.
And, as you rightly say, if you listen to this and you really like your deep dives into horror and sort of, like we try to do.
Yeah, exactly. And the kind of interesting deep cut influences and other references as well, which this documentary has.
Which is giving me plenty of stuff to have a look at now. I haven't got time. I'm too busy, but
one day.
They'll land on the watch list, and I'll get there eventually.
Exactly. So Leap of Faith, then. So there we go. I don't know if that has distribution yet.
Do you think? I think Mubi.
Yeah, probably.
I'd guess Mubi if and when it comes out. I think it probably will come out. But
yeah.
Mubi seems like the kind of place it would land.
Nice. Okay, so there you go. So that is Leap of Faith. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. What's next?
The film most responsible for the most annoying earworm I have experienced in quite some time, where I have been sat at work all day today humming the fucking theme. It's KOKO-DI KOKO.
Oh. This film kind of has really stayed with me. What can you reveal about this movie?
As a couple take a trip to find their way back to each other, a sideshow artist and his shady entourage emerge from the woods, terrorizing them, luring them deeper into a maelstrom of psychological terror and humiliating slapstick.
Yeah. How weird as well, even from that synopsis. It is a weird mix of like comical, campy slapstick at times, and some of the most kind of nasty, I mean, Mary Wilde compared it to sort of Dogville and Funny Games and stuff like that, and there are elements of that in it as well. It's a weird mix, isn't it? What did you think?
I fucking really liked it.
I loved
it. It's a tough watch.
It is a tough watch.
I likened it. I called it Unhappy Death Day.
Yes, yeah, that's a pretty good. That pretty much sums it up. And it is like, I think I said on Twitter, it's like a never-ending nightmare that you just cannot wake up from. And part of me was like, oh my god, when will this end? When will this resolve itself? Because it's so painful, but also it's fucking good and it's really engaging.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's kind of got like the coldness of Hanukkah.
Yes, it does.
In terms of its like familial relationships, but it also has the kind of nihilism of Von Trier.
Yeah,
where it's like everything is fucked, you're fucked.
Yes,
we're gonna suffer.
Yeah,
basically.
Let's watch let's be honest, a woman suffer for pretty much a 90-minute film.
Which, it has drawn its criticisms about its portrayal of violence towards the mother character or the female character in the film.
Yeah. And what also kind of makes it even more uncomfortable and disturbing is that it's also kind of funny as well. Like, again, like Haneke or von Trier, there are times when you're invited, I think, to laugh at it, and it is funny, and that puts you in an even more uncomfortable position.
Yeah, there's certainly an absurdity of it. The big reveal at the beginning of the film that kind of sets off the wheels in motions. We're already laughing because of the stuff that that's being said before. Obviously, no spoilies.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
Yes.
And it was one of the strangest experiences, because it was half like stunned silence, but also half people being like, what the fuck?
What the hell? Yeah, totally.
And from there, the film kind of sets a repetitive secular nature.
Yes.
A secular nature of abuse and suffering and torment. Mm-hmm. Because you can't escape.
Exactly. It's essentially people stuck in a cycle of grief that they can't get out of, essentially.
Unless you confront
your demons,
so to speak.
It's I think it's a very well crafted, controlled. I think it's a really engaging film.
I liked it a lot more than everyone else I can see here, basically.
Oh, really? That's really interesting. Yeah, I loved it as well. And actually, I thought there was some really kind of like beautiful stuff as well. There's this kind of every now and then cuts to the kind of this weird surreal kind of like almost like you're watching imagery from a kid's film or something.
It goes animated,
like kind of animation and puppetry and shadow puppets, and like you say, the most kind of annoying jingle you'll have ever heard.
KOKO-DI KOKO,
which in itself is disturbing and creepy, and it's a hard film to talk about really and discuss and do justice in words.
It would be a great one to have a little deep dive on. But,
it would, and it's kind of a folk horror in some ways as well. Yeah. It's wonderful. I really love it. I really hope that at some point, do you know anything about distribution for this one? Because I hope. Oh, good. So will people be able to see it?
Guest of the pod, Paul Ridd, has signed it up to Picture House Entertainment.
Oh, of course he has. I knew that. Yeah.
And it will be available, I believe, in March 2020 in the UK.
All right. Well,
quite
there you
a while
go.
away, or February. It's one of the two.
Do check it out. I think everyone, again, most people that listen to this podcast, I think will get something out of it. I think it's really interesting, and it's disturbing, and it's fucked up, and it's weird, and it's really something. It's quite unique. So that is KOKO-DI KOKO. Amazing. What a title. All right, what's next on the list?
It's Abe Forsyth's Little Monsters.
Oh.
Next stop, Pleasant Valley.
Hi-ho, Teddy.
Aren't we having a super fun time on our trip?
I want you all in the line in front of me, and away we go.
Why are we stopping?
Must be something in the way.
What is it, Miss Caroline?
Stop the tractor!
Are you okay?
Yes!
Okay, we'll get into this film in just a minute. First of all, I'm going to play a little bit of my interview with the director, Abe Forsyth. And he spoke to me a little bit about what it was like to make a zombie movie and make a zombie movie with Lupita Nyong'o, of all people. So here we go. In the same way as, Matt Stone and Trey Parker and these kind of things, the comedy in this is shocking at times, which is what makes it funny. I just wondered, there's been a lot of talk this week about, I don't know if you've read Todd Phillips sort of saying that comedy has been ruined recently because of woke culture and things like that. Yeah. I just wonder what your opinion is on that.
That's just bullshit.
Yeah.
No, but it really is, because it's like, I can see how easy it would be to be frustrated by what's going on, and certainly there's aspects of what's going on where I think, wow, this is just bizarre. But I think that's happening everywhere in the world. It's not just woke culture. It's everywhere in different ways, and a lot of that has to do with obviously who's in power in the US at the moment as well.
Yeah.
But for me, the comedic filmmakers that I have always admired, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, are hugely at the top of that list for me. I mean, Team America is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
And looking at what Taika Waititi's doing at the moment as well. It should be hard to do extreme comedy, because you should actually, in my opinion, there should be justification for every time you make an extreme joke.
Yeah,
and if you don't have that justification, then you can't make that joke.
Yeah,
there's always going to be people that are offended by just extreme sort of humor. But in my mind, as long as you can stand behind the reason why there is a joke like that, and for me, extreme humor only works when it's illuminating something about a character or saying something about a certain type of behavior.
Yeah.
So for me, it has to do one of those things, because if it's just extreme for the sake of extreme, then there's no point in making it, and you will offend people, and you deserve to face the consequences of what you've done to offend people as well too, as far as I'm concerned. So it's a good sort of vetting process then, because you really do have to question the reason why you're doing something. And for me, it's also about if you're going to be extreme in one direction, then you have to show the opposite as well, too, and in a meaningful way, not just in a flippant way.
Yeah.
So it's more important to actually sort of, and that, again, that goes back to this is what this movie is about. It's about extremes. It's about the best of human behavior and the worst of human behavior.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. He was absolutely lovely, Abe Forsyth, and he actually revealed some really interesting stuff about this movie, about kind of why he made it and what it was like to make it. But let's talk a little bit first of all about the story then. So what is Little Monsters about?
So a washed-up musician teams with a teacher and a kids show personality to protect young children from a sudden outbreak of zombies at a petting zoo.
Yeah.
So the film follows a guy called Dave, who is a man-child, to best describe him.
Yeah.
In a state of perpetual arrested development, doesn't want to grow up, still holding on to the fact he's in a death metal band.
Yes.
God, I wonder why this spoke
you could
to
relate.
Me. He goes to stay with his sister after some shit goes down with his girlfriend, but not and he then meets Lupita Nyong'o, who is the nephew's teacher. He then immediately agrees to help out, going to this petting zoo, and the zombies come. And then it's kind of a splattery, jokey, silly, funny zombie film. Yeah, for all intents and purposes.
It is. It's a pretty generic zombie movie, except that it's set in a context of like, what if you get stuck in a zombie apocalypse with a bunch of 5-year-olds, and how do you protect them and also not really let them know what's going on, so that they're not traumatized.
There's some great sleight of hand in terms of like some things she says to get away from it.
Amazing.
I think it's really cleverly written in that regard, and I think the film's utter strength is not the zombie stuff.
Yes, of course. As most zombie movies is the case.
The strength for this film is that you are emotionally invested in these characters. You love these characters. You want them to grow, and you watch them grow before your eyes and become better people.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think like the first 40 minutes of the film before it really kicks off is the strongest part.
Oh, definitely.
There is some hilariously funny bits and pieces in that.
If anything, I will say, I watched this quite a long time ago, an early press screening, and I knew nothing about it, and I was a little bit disappointed when it turns out to be a zombie movie midway through.
You were a bit pissed off.
I was really enjoying it, and I didn't know what it was going to be about. All I knew was the title was Little Monsters, so I was like, is this going to be a monster movie?
Or killer kids.
And exactly. And at the time, I'd just done a lot of zombie talk, and I was like, really? It's a zombie movie? But like you said, it's not really a zombie. It is, but it's not so much about the zombies. The zombies aren't what makes it good. The characters are absolutely brilliant, and the writing is really witty and really smart.
It's really zippy and really whip smart.
And Lupita Nyong'o really does. Like, she is incredible. She's like, she's kind of hypnotic in this film. You can't really take your eyes off her.
You as the audience fall in love with her just as much as Dave does and the kids all do. Josh Gad is a piece of shit in this film.
Amazing. Josh Gad really kind of playing against his Olaf.
He's kind of almost mimicking the voice.
So funny.
But he is such a dick.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And actually, that's the other thing. And it's something we talked about. I talked with Abe Forsyth a bit about comedy and about Todd Phillips and stuff, about this kind of, because it is quite like bad taste comedy at times in a really funny way. And he says he's always very inspired by people like Matt Stone and Trey Parker, and it's that kind of comedy that he loves. Quite shocking comedy at times and dark comedy. So yeah, this is absolutely worth a watch, isn't it? This is so much fun. It's and this is getting distribution very soon, right?
November the 15th, I believe. Altitude Films are releasing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it will get a decent cinema release. I recommend you go and check it out because, as I say, it's not going to set the zombie world on fire at all.
No.
But for a funny, gross out kind of raunchy, silly comedy, in the same way
that Shaun of the Dead sets itself up really as like a friendship movie with zombies going on in the background kind of thing. The
zombies are very much passive and tertiary to the story.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, you can hear my whole interview with Abe Forsyth on the Patreon, but he's really interesting. He talks about how basically he wrote the whole movie because he was very scared and emotional about his kid's first day at kindergarten and what that meant to kind of give him over to other adults and the dangers of growing up and all this kind of thing. So yeah, he was a really interesting guy. It's a really good film. It's worth a watch.
Certainly.
Nice. All right, that was Little Monsters. What's next?
It's time for some cage rage.
Oh my God, yes.
It's time for Richard Stanley's The Colour Out of Space.
Oh my God. Okay, I'll get into the interview maybe in a minute. First of all, let's introduce the film. What is Colour Out of Space?
Okay. I hope you're sitting down. A story of cosmic terror about the Gardeners, a family who moves to a remote farmstead in rural New England to escape the hustle of the 21st century. They're busy adapting to their new life when a meteorite crashes in their front yard. The mysterious aerolite seems to melt into the earth, infecting both the land and the properties of space and time with a strange, otherworldly colour. To their horror, the Gardner family discovers that this alien force is gradually mutating every life form that it touches, including them.
So a lovely Lovecraftian alien movie directed by Richard Stanley and starring Nick Cage. I mean, what more do you need to know, basically?
I mean, as soon as I found out about this film like a year ago, I was like, sold.
Yeah, absolutely
Don't
sold.
care what happens, fine.
So let's just give a bit of background about Richard Stanley, because this is an interesting director with an interesting kind of career, right?
Yeah.
So this is his first it's his first feature that is like not a documentary or anything. You know, it's his first fictional feature in 27 years. I think his last fictional feature was Dust Devil, right, in the early 90s.
Well, yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Because he did, and he is responsible for the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Well, yes.
Remake with Brando and Kilmer in the mid-90s, but then he was ceremoniously kicked off of the project, so he's not credited, but he did do most of the work on that.
Yes.
He's a really interesting guy. There was also a great documentary called Lost Soul.
Yeah.
Which I think is on Shudder.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Which is a really good insight into what the fuck happened with that train wreck. I think we're going to have one soon as well with Voyage of Dr. Dolittle.
Yes.
Apparently that is meant to be a fucking car crash, so that's exciting.
I can't wait. So Richard Stanley, very interesting guy. Here's a little snippet of my interview with him. First of all, just want to say how exciting it is to see a new movie by Richard Stanley, a new narrative feature as well. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a little long while. Close to 30 years, I'm told.
30 years, yeah, unbelievable. I think 27 years, isn't it? That is it Dust Devil was the last?
Yeah, Dust Devil was the last fully fledged narrative feature that I can lay claim to as a writer-director hyphenate.
Well, I'm so glad to have you back, as I'm sure most genre fans are. Tell me, why has it taken this long for us to see the next movie from you?
And I guess there was a pretty uniform fear of the island of Dr. Moreau and some kind of weird fear of the wrath of Val Kilmer or something that kind of scared away indie producers for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But I also think it's because the ecology of the genre has changed.
Yes.
I think in the 90s when I was working before, the genre was in a very bad place. The amount of product we had was really drying up, and we were seeing only a thin trickle of horror sci-fi movies every year, whereas I believe last year over 700 horror movies were released. Wow. So we're now living in an extraordinary boom period, which is somehow related to the lousy state of the world we're living in.
You've covered about 3 questions. I was just about to ask you all in one go there. You know, it's funny. You know, it's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast. You know, do you think we are currently living in a bit of a golden age of horror?
Massively.
Yeah.
There's clearly a change. Also, we're seeing genuinely good movies. Every year there's like a crop of films I actually want to watch, which have genuine merit. It's really good seeing folk like Ari Aster, Hereditary, and Midsummer out there. It's lovely seeing work like The Lighthouse, The Witch.
Wonderful.
Yeah, there's genuinely good stuff going around. So
it's really interesting as well. I mean, it feels like horror has started to become a bit more recognised by, you know, quote unquote highbrow criticism now as well. You see movies like Get Out win Oscars, etc. I just wondered, you know, do you think that's because have the quality of the movies changed, or has perception of the horror genre changed?
I think the perception of the genre has changed quite a lot, because a lot of these folk are roughly doing the same thing that we were doing back in the day.
Exactly.
I mean, I recall that we were, particularly Dust Devil, but Hardware 2, were criticised for having one foot in the art house.
Right,
and I'm detecting the fingerprints of, like, Terrence Malick all over the current crop of movies. We're seeing influences from people like Malick, Bergman, Tarkovsky creeping into the genre.
Yeah.
And that was something which was going on in the past, but it baffled people.
Yeah.
They didn't know what hook to hang it on. I've never understood that, because horror and sci-fi deal with, for me, the most important themes there are, like the survival of consciousness after death, what's going to happen to us tomorrow or in the future. Also, all really pressing questions that I think most people in the world have some emotional investment in, which, the genre is really the only area where we're allowed to explore those issues.
He was super fascinating. He told me some really funny stories. He talked about what it was like to work with Nick Cage. He talks about taking Nick Cage for dinner and running up a $30,000, or Nick Cage running up a $30,000 bar bill, them nearly losing the original print, the DCP file for Daniel Isn't Real. And basically, he just tells some very funny and very honest stories about, you know, his strife as well in kind of getting a film off the ground. So you can hear that whole interview anyway on Patreon. So, like you said, there's been quite a build-up for this movie. What did you think of it? Was it worth the wait?
Before we get into this, $30,000 bar bill.
Yeah.
No wonder Cage is having to do a score to settle and Tokarev if he's fucking around doing shit like that.
It's so funny. He's clearly not learnt, because I thought that was the reason why he did so many bad films, was because he got himself in debt as well.
There are no bad films that Nicolas Cage has produced. It is on my Hinge profile.
Yeah.
That Nicolas Cage has never made a bad movie. There is value to every single one of them. And you're welcome to try and challenge me on that on Twitter, and I will shout you down.
There you go. Well, there you go. So,
what the fuck happens in Colour Out of Space?
Yeah, so you've got monsters, you've got aliens, you've got this family. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Spielberg at times, and then it goes into complete nuts. There is some definitely, some body horror. There's some From Beyond in there, isn't there? There's all kinds of cosmic shit going on in the latter half.
We did a brief chat about it on the Patreon.
Yeah, we did.
Which, oh my God, we're giving the hard sell for this episode.
Yeah, we really are. we really are.
But we did some initial reactions literally the second we came out of the film. It's visually quite astonishing in terms of bearing in mind the budget, which I think Spectrovision produced this, right?
Yes.
Elijah Wood and all that.
Yes, exactly.
Considering the budget constraints that I would assume that Stanley had to work with, he still crafted quite a beautiful looking film.
He really did, yeah.
If you like The Colour Purple. Not the Whoopi Goldberg film. the Colour Purple. I'll recycle that gag. It's fine. I'm not too proud. But yeah, so it stars Jolie Richardson as well, which she was
great.
She was also at the festival.
She was, yeah.
Nicolas Cage did not come to London Film Festival. I don't know what we did to wrong him.
No, I know.
But
sad.
Helena,
he probably couldn't afford his plane fare or something, you know.
he's just finished making a film where he's like, there's like big cats on the loose, and
Brilliant.
It's like a horror film. Oh God, it's called Primal. It's gonna be fucking sick.
Brilliant.
Obviously. So yeah, this film's kind of trippy, Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is how committed it is to it, because
I love it.
We talked about it, like if Richard Stanley did It Chapter 2,
yes,
he'd really commit to the kind of cosmic,
the craziness,
look of it.
Yeah.
Because I completely buy it. I don't care that it doesn't make any sense and that Nicolas Cage is shouting at llamas or slam dunking tomatoes into a bin.
Yeah.
I don't care that those things are happening. I'm on for the ride because this film establishes very early on things are fucked around here.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't right.
It's great. It's really visually arresting, I think, and it kind of plays with the idea. When it first starts, the first few shots, I thought, oh, is this like period set? Like, it kind of looks like something from the past. You see this kind of like Wiccan girl in the woods and stuff riding a horse, and then it kind of goes into this, but it's almost like a kind of weird, fucked up fairy tale from the beginning, which I really loved. Nicolas Cage is very good. Jodie Richardson is very good, and they're both quite different actors and different styles, but they work really well together in this.
What I like about Cage is he doesn't start at 10.
Yes,
he starts at 1.
He goes on that journey.
He's almost like the weatherman.
Yes.
Kind of like normal dad.
Yeah.
Cage.
Yeah.
And then
he goes full Cage. Of course.
Then at the end, my God, the man gives me what I want.
There's some wonderful body horror practical effects in this as well, and there's some monsters. I think if you like movies like The Mist, some of it reminded me of that as well. It's got everything in it. It crams everything in it. It's quite fun.
It's a bizarre one. We walked out, and I still, even though that was 2 weeks ago, I'm still don't know what the fuck happened.
No.
It's almost like a vivid dream.
Yeah.
Or like I've been on DMT. Yeah. I don't know what DMT is like, but
it's really, exactly. It's really unique. That's what I love about it. And I guess it doesn't succeed in everything it does. But again, like we said on Patreon, it does kind of shoot for the moon. It aims high, and I love its ambition and its craziness.
Exactly. And it also would make a great double bill with Mandy, so you could have the Cosmicolas Cage double bill.
It would go well. I mean, again, it's that Spectre-Vision vibe, that Spectre-Vision look.
That neon shit, baby. We love it.
Yeah, it is. It's got the colour palette of Spectre-Vision, absolutely. So there you go. That is the previously labelled unfilmable Colour Out of Space. Richard Stanley proved everyone wrong. Okay, what's next on the list?
We're going to take a slight divergence, but it is still in the cult strand. It's the documentary on the 1995 box office bomb, Showgirls. It's You Don't Know Me.
Brilliant. I haven't seen this one. I'm very excited to hear all about it. This feels like a documentary that's very you to me, because I imagine you're a fan of Showgirls.
I fucking love Showgirls.
Of course you do.
So I'm going to take you just a quick little trip down memory lane. The first time I ever watched Showgirls, you can imagine, teenage boy when it came out. So 1995, I was 11. Mm-hmm. So when it made its way onto VHS, about 3 years later, back when those were the things.
Yeah.
For some bizarre reason, I watched it with my own mother.
Oh, no.
And let me tell you, that was both a sexually awakening but also very troubling time for me.
Yes.
Because I'm watching Jessie from Saved by the Bell,
yeah,
and I can see her lady
bits.
But my mother is sat right there.
Yeah.
It was a very awkward,
that's a confusing time. Yeah.
But yeah, I fucking love Showgirls. What this film does, it's Jeffrey McHale that's directed it. First time director, writer, whatever. Mm-hmm. What he does is he doesn't reframe the narrative of the film being a failure. It also doesn't try and convince you that you're wrong for not liking it.
Yeah, okay.
It calls it a masterpiece of shit.
Right, okay. Nice.
That's the line it treads. It also doesn't speak to any of the people involved, rather than archive footage of Joe Esteharez, the writer, and Paul Verhoeven, the director. It also makes you really want to watch a lot of Verhoeven's other stuff.
Oh, I love Verhoeven, yeah.
Because some of his like Spielers from 1980, like his Dutch films,
and
it shows the kind of connected themes that he's always been things that were critiqued in the film of Showgirls. You can see they're a visualistic style of a director or an auteur that does this consistently.
Yes.
So out of context, it looks bizarre.
Yeah.
And the film repurposes it all to kind of give you like a context as to who the director. It shows you more who the director was and who the writer was, and understanding why they made it.
Right.
Not trying to convince you that what they've made is good.
Yeah. But sort of where he came from and how he got there, basically.
Yeah, and like basically, they're quite. The film's quite candid. It says it's two white straight men who are at the height of their powers off the back of Basic Instinct.
Yes.
Who are just like, fuck it. Let's do loads of coke and do whatever the fuck we like. And Showgirls is what came out. And, you know, they've tried to then as writer and director have tried to repurpose the film. At the first they said it was a drama, like serious. Then they realized it was not being taken that way. So it was supposed to then be a comedy. So they've tried to reframe the narrative as to how it came to be.
Yeah.
To mixed success. People have called them out on it. He's also the first ever director to correct his Razzie in person, the nominations for the worst films. He's the first director to ever go and get it. The film made me fucking cry.
Oh, wow.
Which I did not see coming.
Amazing.
That is all to do with Elizabeth Berkley.
Yeah.
Because her career died.
I know.
Off the back of that film.
Yeah.
And, Verhoeven himself comes out in archive footage and says, I told her to be like that.
Yeah.
Like, everything is large and grandiose and big with her. Every movement. There's no... And it kind of killed her career. And at the end... It kind of comes full circle.
Right.
And I found myself, maybe it's because it was the day before London. It was 2 days ago when
you were
London
a bit
Film
tired. Yeah.
I was emotional. I'd had enough. I think that was my 31st film of the festival.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed it. I
nice.
think if you love or hate Showgirls, there's something there for you either way. And then obviously go and watch Showgirls.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has got to watch Showgirls at least once. You've got to check it out. And Paul Verhoeven is so interesting. I did a whole thing with him on the BBC once and had to watch some of that early stuff in his career. And he is a fascinating guy and a really funny guy as well.
He's a provocateur. And, he provoked quite the reaction for Showgirls.
He did, as he always does. I mean, I remember all the conversations around Elle a few years ago as well. And what a film. Okay, all right, so there you go. That's You Don't Know Me. Is that going to be anywhere at any point?
At the moment.
We don't know yet, but let's keep an eye out. Fingers crossed. All right, what's next?
It's La Dame, a.k.a. Deerskin.
Oh my God, I completely forgot this film. Yeah, I forgot this film even existed. Yes, all right.
That's not a good sign.
No, it didn't make a huge impression on me, to be honest. But anyway, what is Deerskin about?
So it's directed by Quentin Duplex.
Yes.
Or Dupieux, who is probably most famous for doing the film Rubber about the killer tire.
Yes.
He also did Wrong and Reality and a few other bits and pieces. But he's made this film about a man who becomes obsessed with owning a designer deerskin jacket of his dreams. This obsession will lead him to turn his back on his entire life in the suburbs, blow his life savings, and even turn it into a life of crime.
Yes. And that is really all it is about. It is about a man killing people for wearing jackets.
I fucking love this film so much.
Did you? I thought it was just kind of fine, but like I said, I'd already forgotten that I watched that film a week ago.
You called it... No, you watched it on the 20th of September, mate. You watched it
well, there you go.
a
It's
month ago.
ages ago.
You called it enjoyable nonsense, Lanthimos Light.
Yes. Well, I agree with me from the 20th of September. It is Lanthimos Light. It feels like it is going for a Lanthimos tone and vibe, and I don't think it did much more than literally the kind of synopsis that you read. I didn't really understand why I was watching what I was watching, I guess.
So my review is also very weird. I said, hot girl summer is dead. Long live divorced dad autumn.
Okay, yes.
I love anything that is fucking weird for the sake of being weird.
Yeah.
So this film stars fucking titan of French cinema, Jean Dujardin.
Yeah. He was very good at this.
He's fucking amazing. Who, as you said, is obsessed with owning this deerskin jacket.
Yeah.
But then decides that it needs to be the only jacket in the world. And he doesn't want anyone else to wear a jacket. That's where he meets Adele Hanel, who has rocketed with this and Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yeah.
To my number one celebrity crush.
Yeah,
I fucking love her.
Yeah.
Ever since I've seen her in The Unknown Girl with the Dardennes a few years ago. She is amazing. There is not much to say. This film is about a man that wants to destroy all jackets and will kill people if he can't.
Yeah. If he sees someone wearing a jacket. Yeah, that is it. It's really fun. It is. And I didn't dislike it. I had a great time with it. But I think by about the 1 hour mark, I was like, okay, I get this now. I'm done with it.
It's only 72 minutes long, mate.
I know, and that's it. And it still felt a bit long to me.
I fucking love it.
But I think a load of people really loved it. And there was a lot of laughter in my screening. It is really funny because it's so absurd and out there. And the central performance is really fun.
I just love that, Dupieux does these incredibly out there concepts and somehow manages to make it work. Like a killer tire movie shouldn't work.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's
but
so
it
true.
Does.
And it's good for him for doing something so out there, I suppose.
And I suppose like you saying kind of he's Lanthimos light, I'm pretty sure they've been going around about the same time.
I know.
They might have a similar tone or theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're kind of...
No, you're right. That's true. And that
it would be a disservice to
I guess it's not so much that I thought he was trying to replicate Lanthimos or anything, but it's more that just it reminded me of maybe something like The Lobster, but just there wasn't as much going on. But it's certainly funny, and it is quite a good laugh. And like you say, it is only 72 minutes, so, you know,
and
give it a watch.
This is the man that gave us the gift of Mr. Wazzo.
Oh my God, yeah.
Show some goddamn respect.
I know,
Put
Mr.
some respect on his
Wazzo.
name.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I liked it. It's coming out via Picture House next year.
Yes, it
Paul
is.
Ridd snapped it up again.
Yeah.
What a lad.
He's done well this year, Paul Ridd. Amazing. Fantastic. Well, there you go. So that is Deerskin. All right. We're getting there. We're getting through our list. Penultimate. Here we go. So we're into your top 2 of the Cult Strand. What is next?
It's Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala's The Lodge.
You okay? I don't want to leave you here with the kids if you're not feeling up to it.
I'm feeling fine. It was my idea, and it took a couple days. I can do a couple days.
Okay, guys, I'm off. Have fun.
What has happened?
It's Christ.
Everyone committed suicide except for her.
Repent, and you will find salvation.
I'm so glad this is up as high as it is, because this would
It's
be exactly
fucking brilliant.
It is brilliant. It is, and again, this is not impressed at as many people as I thought it would. I've spoken to a couple of people that were like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, I was quite surprised." This really fucked me up, this film.
Yeah, ruined me.
So we don't want to reveal too much about this, because I think it's better to know as little as possible. But what can we reveal about this movie?
2 siblings spend the night alone with their new would-be maternal mother figure.
Yeah, kind of new stepmother almost.
Yeah. Stuck in a remote mountain cabin, and the trio are terrorized by a supernatural force.
Yes.
Or is they?
So, first of all, what I want to ask you is, if this is made by the guys that made Goodnight Mummy, obviously. Were you a fan of Goodnight Mummy?
Fucking love Goodnight Mummy.
Yeah, incredible.
Yes.
Nasty movie. I loved it. And how does this live up to Goodnight Mummy?
You can see that it's made by the same directors.
Yes.
There is certainly, I'm not saying this is a spoiler, but there's recurrent themes in terms of, once again, almost like Vivarium as well, fuck having kids.
Yeah, yeah. It's so true. But do you know what it also really reminded me of? And it's probably unfair to say this, because again, they are contemporaries, but Ari Aster, I mean, there is something really of Hereditary and Midsummer in the setup to this movie.
And the kind of even the visuals, although this is quite snowy, remote and stark, so you've also got Shining connotations there as well.
Definitely.
It stars Riley Keough, who is always fucking amazing value and is kind of a genre titan when it comes to these sort of things. And also Alicia Silverstone,
who's brilliant in it as well. And we won't say too much about, but I think she does a really good job in this movie. Everyone's good. Oh, and it's what's his name?
Densborough again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Densborough. It is Bill from It.
Right, I'm gonna, for the first time ever, I'm gonna say his real name. Jaden Martell.
That's it. Yeah. Jaden Martell. This is, I would say, the most
out and out horror.
It is the scariest movie at LFF for me, and one of the scariest movies I've seen this year in terms of, like, we sat on the very front row, didn't we, of the big screen in the BFI, and I was very much like, holy shit, how much more of this can I take? There are moments that are very oppressive and very, like, dread, just filled with dread. But, you know, throughout.
You as the viewer feel unwelcome.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be watching this, but you are, so tough shit. Like, deal with what you're seeing. Because we don't want you here. You shouldn't be here.
Exactly. And in that Ari Aster way, this is not a movie this is not fun horror. This is like, I'm going to put you through it.
You're going through the ringer.
Yeah, in a really emotional way. I loved it.
Stark visuals. It's
so good.
If you're a kid of divorce, it absolutely plays on some. It drug up some fucking shit for me. I was talking afterwards about how it reminded me of awkward family dinners at Harvester when I was 13.
Well, that's it. It's and again, going back to Hereditary, but loads of horror movies, The Shining and The Witch, even these kind of, like, it's a horror movie about family and about family dynamics and the real horror of
the inescapableness of family. There's nothing you can do about them.
Yeah,
save for bumping them off.
Yeah, in the way that what was that brilliant the Trey Edward Schultz movie that he did before It Comes at Night? Creature. That is like a horror movie about a family as well. Yeah, I love movies like that.
I missed Waves.
I missed Waves as well. Gutted
His new
about
one,
it.
but
Absolutely
it is out
gutted.
in January.
Yeah, because I loved It Comes at Night, and especially Creature, though. But yeah, there is something about families. But yeah, this movie, The Lodge, again, it is the most classic horror in the traditional sense, and fucking scary.
Because what I would say about this year's programming is there's not a lot of out and out horrors, and this is the closest you get to it. And even this, I wouldn't say is
no
a horror, but it, as you say, in the Astor sensibilities of
yes,
what
it's what some people would call elevated horror or something, isn't it? Which we won't, but it's that kind of thing.
It's a familial drama.
It's a slow burn family drama that ends up being horror. Yeah,
it's fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's so good, so good. If you like Goodnight Mommy, if you like those types of movies, absolutely go see it. I think this will be on my end of year top 10 when it comes to horror for certain.
I wouldn't doubt that, but the problem is I don't think it's even got a distributor over here at the moment.
Oh, for what?
We don't know what's going on with it.
That's really weird, especially considering Goodnight Mommy got distribution, and this is an this is an English language movie, and it's so.
At the moment, I'd say it would be. It's set around Christmas.
Yeah,
we've negated to mention. Yeah, it would be perfect Christmas release. Go up against fucking Cats.
Yeah,
see what happens.
Yeah, it is the anti-family Christmas movie. It's great,
but I can't see it happening now.
No,
like I think the window's been missed, which means it will just unceremoniously be dumped somewhere in March.
That's very sad. Yeah,
but who knows?
I hope it gets. Hopefully, it will see the light of day. I'm sure it will.
Oh, it's got to.
It will at some point.
It's got to. But as of recording,
it doesn't. Oh, interesting. Well, everyone keep an eye out for that then. That is the brilliant The Lodge, our second favourite movie. I'm with you on this when it comes to the top two, but our second favourite movie in the cult strand. So, last on our list, the best movie in the cult strand this year. What are we on to next?
It's also the gala presentation, the tentpole film of the cult section.
It was.
It is the follow-up to the 2015 shocker, The Witch, and it's Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse.
So again, this is a movie that you can't. It's hard to even describe in words, really. And in terms of summarising a plot, what can we say about it? Two blokes stuck in a lighthouse together, essentially.
Yeah. So I ripped off an old Vine for my review.
Yeah.
Which was two bros chilling in the lighthouse, 5 feet apart because they're not gay.
Yeah.
You can't say anything about this film because it's not really a film, it's an experience.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. It's an experience. And one thing I will say is I'm so intrigued to see what people think of this that go along thinking it's just the next movie by the guy that made The Witch, which was just quite a traditional horror movie set in the woods. This is not really a horror movie. It's not really got a narrative in some way. It is, like you say, it's an experience.
It's an endurance test.
Yeah.
And it's also, for me, finally cemented an idea that I've had about A24 and about Robert Eggers and about all these new horror genre filmmakers that literally they could fart at the camera and the audience will eat it up.
We'll love it. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Like, it feels like he's deliberately doing that.
Yeah.
Because they can just do whatever the fuck they like and it don't matter.
Unfortunately, I agree with you, actually. And my brain part of me was going, really? But actually, I loved it. I was absolutely with it from beginning to end, you know?
It's such an odd one because, one of my, I don't, as you know, really like The Witch.
No.
I'm not, I think The Witch is fine. Mm-hmm. I just don't think it's this, titan of genre cinema that everyone pertains it to be. So, but for some reason I was really intrigued by this. I think because it's the cast. I love Patterson and I love Defoe, and they both give very unique but also maddening performances. They really, there were stories from production of Eggers putting them through the fucking ringer, like pelting them with freezing cold water just to get them in that right state of hysteria. And the film kind of starts quite muted and kind of eases you in, and then from just a split second, everything is fucked for the rest of the film.
Yeah, absolutely fucked. It is a nightmare. Do you know what it really reminded me of? Eraserhead. David Lynch's Eraserhead, where there is this like clanging, endless noise in the background. It's black and white. It is like this horrible endurance test. And it doesn't sound like we're selling the film very much, does it? But it's incredibly made. Yeah, sorry.
And it's like a droning, incessant, monotonous cycle of just
awfulness.
Just the worst shit that could happen.
Yeah. It's and it is what I love about Robert Eggers, about The Witch and The Lighthouse, is that there's something really authentic feeling about his movies. Like, I thought this about The Witch, and I feel this about The Lighthouse, where it's not just a movie set in like the 1800s or whatever it is. It feels like it's been made then. It's like
it embodies
it. You know, this is a 4:3 black and white movie, and again, it's got that. It's something about it just feels like you're looking in on this real life nightmare like play out in front of you.
And there's some interesting themes in it. But I don't understand the film. I'm candidly going to say that. I don't understand everything about it.
No.
But I don't think that's necessarily the point. I think it's going to open up for rewatches. There's certainly themes of guilt, of identity, but I mean, these are kind of base terms.
And there's definitely a kind of, you know, not to get too wanky about it, but there's an element of Bergman, but there's also a Samuel Beckett thing, this kind of waiting for Godot, like two blokes just doing nothing for 90 minutes, basically stuck with each other in hell, essentially.
And there seems to be something, which obviously I'm going to be exploring soon, about the kind of generational guilt and kind of that kind of juxtaposition between kind of the old guard and the new society or the new generation,
which Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson kind of really nicely encapsulate.
They kind of embody those the old classical actors and the new fresh-faced kids that started it from obviously Twilight and everything, but have now come on to become kind of almost Indian genre titans.
Yeah. And I'm just really intrigued to see what Robert Pattinson fans go along to this thing, because it really is something else.
It was an odd one though, because like you and Lou covered it very briefly on Patreon for $5 a month.
Yeah.
And you then both tweeted, and both your tweets did numbers. Like, because of stands.
It's the same with Synchronic and Jamie Dornan fans as well.
I found that out the hard way as well. Oh my God. I then followed up with a tweet saying you shouldn't tweet about Jamie Dornan. And then a lady from Africa responded saying, just to confirm you are correct. From Africa.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing. These are like these heartthrob, actors that have this fan base, but they're doing such interesting, weird projects. I am so intrigued to see what everyone thinks of The Lighthouse when it comes out, because
it would be amazing to have these the stands that look at him and just think, oh, he's Edward or whatever.
Yeah,
sitting down for 2 hours and getting the shit kicked out of you by.
Because even Claire Denis' High Life is not this, level of like...
That was already a stretch for them.
Yeah,
and that didn't do particularly well with the stands.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is going to be the...
And what's so weird about this movie, like we said, it's this weird mash of like horror, but also weird it's fart gags and stuff. And slapstick.
And like bonking your head. And then it's very horny.
Yeah, very horny.
It's very horny.
Yeah, and which is in itself is weird, because it's also kind of gross and grim and just like dirty.
Yeah, because I'm sure there have been many a male and female fan of Robert Pattinson that's been hoping to see him masturbate.
This isn't going to be what you hoped for.
This is not the way you wanted to see it.
So funny. It is, and there was a lot of laughter in my screening. But again, we've seen it in. Well, you saw it at a public screening, actually, didn't you? What did you get from the vibe of the audience? Do you think people enjoyed it?
It was a weird one. It got a lot of laughs, but obviously it was my third attempt at seeing the film, because it was intensely popular. They had to keep adding screenings of it. There was certainly no gasps or audible shocks.
Yeah.
Everyone seemed along for the ride. Everyone seemed cool with it. I would say laughter was probably the most common.
Yeah.
Just the kind of absurdity of it.
Yeah.
And the escalation. But there is this kind of oppressiveness with it again, where, as I say, it's predominantly the soundtrack that just makes you almost feel sick.
Yeah, totally. There's a nauseating element to it, because also the waves crashing, and there is this the
camera's moving in like a rocking kind of way. There's this rhythmic pulsing, horrible kind of drone that just won't stop. And,
It's really, I mean, Robert Eggers, what are you doing to us?
He's
really
fucking
something.
mad as a box of frogs.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I respect The Witch. I think The Witch is a good film to a degree.
Yeah.
But this is something else. Like, he's just been like, but honestly, A24 will just, he's greenlit.
Yeah.
They can just, what's beautiful about these filmmakers like Astor and like Eggers is that they've got a blank check and they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Which is why we're getting unique experiences, because this ain't a film.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get, 10 years ago, we wouldn't get.
Never. No.
Wes
so
Craven's
true.
not going to make The Lighthouse.
No, it's incredible.
Eli Roth's not going to make The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
But these guys will.
Yeah.
And there are studios, A24, that will fund these kind of follies.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some misses.
Oh,
absolutely.
Of course.
There's going to be some fucking huge catastrophes. But so far,
yeah, it's a pretty good hit rate.
There's not much I can't complain.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was coming out in January, 31st of January next year. I'm going to see it again.
Oh, I can't wait.
Because I need to see it again. I need to understand it more.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle I can't unlock.
I can't believe it's how popular it's proven to be already, actually. The fact that, like you said, it kept selling out of all its screenings. They had to add more. Again, for such a strange, black and white 4x3 35mm art house film, which essentially it is already like one of the most talked about movies of the year. So it's really interesting. I can't wait to see how it does.
There's already an Oscar push for Dafoe just for his farting performance anyway.
Oh, it's incredible. Willem Dafoe is the best he's ever been, I think. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Okay, well there you go. We've got through the cult strand. That's The Lighthouse. Both of our favourite films in the cult strand.
Isn't it nice to be on the same page?
It is, isn't it?
How synchronic of us.
Oh, lovely. We've got the same top two there. The Lodge. If you want just out and out classic horror, go for The Lodge. But if you want a truly nightmarish experience, go for The Lighthouse. You know, they're pretty amazing. All right, so we're going to just wrap up with a few quick mentions of some other stuff outside of cult that are still worth a mention on this podcast. So what have you got for us?
So the films I want to talk about there's a film called La Llorona.
Yes.
Which was playing in the official competition.
Yep.
No, it's not that fucking mess one from May time.
The one that turned out to be a Conjuring movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This one's directed by J.O. Bustamante. And it's about the political genocide in Guatemala, but repurposed and framed in a ghost story.
Interesting.
Of which one of the generals that allowed all the mass genocide to happen takes in a new housekeeper after everyone leaves because he's now facing disciplinary action or criminal charges. New housekeeper comes in, but there's something not quite right with her. And it's about being haunted by the past. And it's not horror at all, but it's got folk vibes to it and certainly ghostly, otherworldly tinge to it. So that's one that might be worth checking out if you get the chance to.
Nice.
Judy and Punch has got quite a lot of...
I'm really gutted I missed this. I want to see
quite
this.
a folkish,
Wheatley,
like a Field in England-esque about the kind of story of Punch and Judy. That is folky. It's fun.
Yeah.
The Other Lamb.
Oh, yes. I'm intrigued to hear about this.
This is an interesting one. So this is by, I'm very, very sorry, Małgorzata Zumowska.
Okay.
Who has done quite a few films, as a matter of fact. And this is basically about... It's an English language film, which I didn't think it would be.
Right, okay.
I was a bit surprised. But it stars Rafie Cassidy, who you all know from Vox Lux and Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Right, yeah.
And she joins a cult which is run by Michael Huseman, who you all know from The Invitation.
Yes. Oh my God, yeah. Of course.
And Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
And it's basically a guy who's got a serial bigamist, and he has a flock of women who are both some of his wives and some of his children.
Right.
And you grow from child to wife.
Wow.
So it's kind of Manson-esque, but it's set in this very... it reminded me of like Andrzej Zulawski, kind of like Cosmos, not necessarily Possession, the freneticness of that, but like sort of his later work in Cosmos and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's very folky and very culty.
Oh, nice. Okay, this sounds good.
Very soft, gentle, beautiful to look at. Some astonishing visuals, and not once again a little nasty streak that runs through it. So
nice. Okay, so that's The Other Lamb.
The Other Lamb.
Okay.
You've also got Takashi Miike's new film, First Love.
I really gutted I missed this.
This was good fun. Watch this on a Friday night. Odeon Lux, recliner seat. Thanks very much.
Lovely.
So Takashi Miike decides to finally do a love story, but obviously couldn't do a love story about the triads and Yakuza being involved. There are some gross out gags. There is some carnal violence. There is some torturous, nasty scenes. But also, most importantly, it's really funny.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's really fun. Signature Entertainment are picking that up. That's coming out soon.
Nice. Always up for a Takashi Miike film. Can't wait.
2 more to go. Very quickly. St. Maud.
Yes.
You saw this.
Oh, my God. This film. Yeah.
The best final shot I saw all festival.
Yeah. And I've heard, people keep talking about this and whether or not it's a horror film. And essentially the story of a carer called Maud, who is recently kind of found faith and is a very devout, pious Christian, and has to look after this dying woman in her house, played by Jennifer Ely. And it's really... Actually, funnily enough, I saw a Q&A with the director, and she kind of said it was like her taxi driver, like this kind of like woman who's been stamped on by society. We're very much aligned with her point of view. It's her narrating the piece, and it's kind of her on a breakdown. And it's a really fascinating movie, isn't it? And it really straddles that line between kind of drama and horror in a really interesting way.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting, beautiful kind of film.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
The kind of it almost had kind of like a Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, although they're not.
It's not quite as campy as that,
no,
but it's
But there's dual personalities.
Yes.
Coming to the fore. But I thought it was beautifully portrayed, and it's written with real heart and care, but also has some some pretty shocking and
nasty, shocking stuff. Yeah,
and I say that the final shot I think will stick with me for quite a while.
So good, so good. Yeah,
I remember it happens, and I was like, "Oof,
yeah,
little bastard."
It also reminded me a little bit of, I guess this is the Taxi Driver link, but of First Reformed in a weird way as well.
About faith and spirituality in that regard,
and that kind of ending as well,
and how you deal with that, and looking at someone whose life is not faith and not spiritually based in any way, and there's anything that's quite destructive.
Yes,
and the kind of battle between good and evil.
Love it. That's worth a watch. That's St. Maud. That's getting distribution, I think. That's film 4 and stuff. But anyway,
I'll definitely about. Last one is Jallikattu.
Oh yes.
My
I heard about this.
Fucking God.
This is The Bull on the Loose. Is it that
this
one?
This is a portrait of a remote village in the hometown where a buffalo escapes and causes a frenzy of ecstatic violence. I've never seen anything like it. You're going to talk about one afterwards, which very quickly.
Yeah, I will. I will.
But I called this one a pulsating rhythmic frenzy of a film, and that chaos truly does reign.
Oh, I'm excited.
It's just, you've got your 5-minute, this is the town.
Yeah.
And then it is pandemonium, and it never ends, and it's just escalation. The soundtrack is pulsing and vibrant.
Oh my God.
And it's just mania bottled up for 90 minutes.
Oh wow!
It was the last film I saw before I flew off to New York. So I'm sitting in the lounge ready to go, just like my heart's still pulsing because it's. I don't know how the fuck it's going to come out.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to come out, but it's great.
Amazing.
And now you're going to tell me
about Monos. Is that what you're?
Yeah, because I never saw it.
Oh yeah, and that is Monos is incredible, I've got to say. So this was the film that won the official competition at LFF. Not a horror film by any means, but it is absolutely incredible. It's this story about child soldiers, basically in South America, but it's done in that kind of genre way, like Tigers Are Not Afraid or a Guillermo del Toro movie. It's like a kind of fucked up fairy tale. A lot of people were saying, I think Lou Thomas was saying, it's kind of like Apocalypse Now meets Lord of the Flies, and it's about these kids with guns running around in the jungle, and it's really vibrant with no supervision. It's a bit battle royale in some ways as well. It's just wonderful. And for, considering the setup sounds quite bleak, it's really fun, but also really dark and nasty and moving. It's amazing. And that's also getting Picture House distribution. Paul Ridd was the one that discovered that film and bought it as well. So
October 25th, not long. So
oh, amazing! So that's literally like next week.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And my devastation, because all the screenings were when I was in New York.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fixing that.
Oh, you will love it
as quick as possible because I need to see it.
You will absolutely love it. Everyone must see it. That is Monos, and that's basically it, right? Is that our list?
That's it, mate.
That is it. We did well there. We rattled through some. So, I mean, overall, I guess we've kind of said. I was going to ask you what your favourite is. It is The Lighthouse, right? Nice. And then favourite non-horror. Portrait of a Woman, Lady on Fire.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Remarkable
filmmaking.
Amazing. It's been a pretty incredible year. Amazing. Brad, thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a pleasure. Where can people find you out there in the world? Social media, etc.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @hadbranson, and you can find me on Letterboxd at splatterpatter.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
And that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and a big thank you to my amazing and very dedicated co-host, Brad Hanson. So please do get in touch with us. Let us know your thoughts on some of these movies. Have you seen any of them? Have you seen The Lodge, The Lighthouse, Synchronic, etc.? We'd love to know what you guys thought. Please do drop me an email, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, and that's where you can find out what films we're going to be covering in the next series of the podcast, which is going to be starting imminently. And if you want to join the discussion group, get involved, chat to other listeners, then please do join up. That's the Evolution of Horror discussion group, and that can be found on Facebook. If you want to sign up to our Patreon, you can hear tons and tons of extra content, as well as full interviews with all of those filmmakers you heard snippets from this week. Simply go to patreon.com/evolutionofhorror. If you sign up and donate $5 a month, you will get access to weekly bonus content. You'll also get a special shout out on the main podcast, and if you're UK based, you'll get sent an Evolution of Horror sticker. So please do get involved. You can find this podcast on all major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Acast, Libsyn, and various others. If you get a chance, please do subscribe to us, spread the word about us, tell your family and friends about us, and if you haven't done so already, please do drop a little rating or review. I will be so grateful. It helps the podcast get boosted in algorithms and helps us get discovered by new listeners. That's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and join us again very soon for a brand new series of the Evolution of Horror.